Hello, everybody. I was talking to you last time about children's art for two reasons. One, because we wanted to talk about the origins of art, and this is a way of getting at the origins. And another reason is because I wanted you to discover children's art in order to understand art of the 20th century. Because by looking at the work of children, what we're really doing is exactly the same thing that the artists did at about the beginning of this century. As they began to look at the work of children, and they tried to learn from them, desiring really the kind of freshness and newness that we spoke about these things having. As they turned to them to learn, and we turned to them to learn too. Now, not to learn the same kind of things which you can learn from, say, some of the great masters of the Renaissance, but to learn something that the artists of our time feel they need to know and must know. Now, I showed you some things last time, and I'd like to show you some more to disabuse you of one idea, that is the idea that all children's art looks alike. It doesn't. It doesn't because children themselves are different, and because they have very often something entirely new and personal to express, and they try to do it. When you see such a thing as this, it's a very complicated organization of space, and it's a very amusing kind of complexity to it. You can move all around in this wonderful scene that this child of, I think it's about 9 years old, has made. And as you can see here, the child itself with perhaps a picnic, and here the river, and over here distant hills and trees, and up here wonderful people turning into clouds, or clouds turning into people, I don't know which you want to say, and here's some kind of an airplane smiling back at us. But as a whole thing, it is very unique, and in the color, it's a very subtle color, which is not really too customary for children's work. Very gentle, sort of grayish greens. And yet, despite the unusualness of this, it has one thing that children very often do all over the world. As they make a tree which is sort of like a lollipop, the heavy branch and then a balloon-shaped top. You see, these are a little bit modified, much more than in some other things that children do. But it is still within a certain very decided, familiar pattern. A child doesn't have to have seen anything that looks like this. It does it, well, from what sources? I don't know, and I don't think anyone else knows. But it will do it over and over again. Now here you have another, and quite different from this last one that I showed you. This is called Under the Sea, and the child has been interested in these, which I assume are coral branches, and has made them quite diverse, and it's a very delicate and very, in a way, almost a drawing concept, though it is in painting. But the thin lines and the interest in the breaking of these lines is all a part of a concept which is entirely different from that last one that you saw. And yet these wonderful things that look like airplanes, or look almost like some kind of insect that are supposed to be fishes, the whole thing is a very rich and delightful kind of image. And you can see how people who are trying, because the 20th century artist is trying to create a new world. And you can see how they would turn to this kind of thing, because this is a new world to them and to most of us. One of the things which the child does with so much vim and enthusiasm is make a new image of man, of the human being. And here I think is a delightful one of grown people looking at little children. I don't know whether you can see them, but they're on a maypole. It looks like they're hanged, and these are great giants all around. The effect is one much fiercer, I'm sure, than the child intended. But we enjoy this quality of intensity and the strange distortion of the faces and the strange feeling of almost of violence and this very simple forms of the body. And here's another by a younger child that has this quality which I spoke to you about last time, which is certainly one that the artist very much wants to be able to capture, and that is the feeling of vitality, of an excited kind of life, an intensification of life that children seem to feel automatically, or seem to be able to convey automatically. Why? One of the reasons is because the thing that they paint or the thing that they draw has great meaning for them. It has a deep kind of significance for them, and they are never, I think I can say never, artificial or affected about it. They intensely want to convey something, and though their means may be clumsy, the thing that they want to convey may not be conveyed. Some of this intensity of desire is conveyed. And that is one of the things which the artists of the 20th century wanted to introduce or to incorporate into his work, and so he turned to children's work. Now, if you know that, then I think you won't make the mistake when you look at a contemporary painting, a mistake which a great many people make. The mistake of saying, but this looks like a child's painting. This looks as though it were done carelessly. It looks as though the person couldn't draw. See, that's one of the things which is brought up against the contemporary painter a great deal. Now, looking at this, you must look at it through, in a way, the eyes of the artist who has looked at children's work, and looked at it with respect, and looked at it with the feeling that what the child has is one of the most valuable things that a work of art can have. A kind of faith, a conviction, a refusal to be, attempt things which it is not interested in. This kind of bluntness of manner, which you see in this, and the things that the buildings are all crooked, and the colors are all raw and strange. These things, this artist, who is named Franz Marc, and I think you may know some of his paintings, he was a German painter who died in the First World War. He was looking at the work of children. That was one of the things that he was doing. And from them he learned, or he gained, with some of this feeling of simplicity, of honesty. Now, if you look at this picture and say, one, you say it is incompetent, you are not really looking at it. It is competent for the thing which it wants to do. If you look at it and say the artist doesn't know any better, again, you are not looking at it with his eyes, or perhaps even with the eyes of anyone who has thought too much about the art of this time. One of the things which the artists of the 20th century learned from the work of children, I think you can see in this great painting of Matisse. Again, you have that quality of clumsiness, or the quality of roughness, unfinishedness, that is so much a part of much of contemporary art. But think for a moment, how much is it a part of what you require any time you require anything of people? How much do you dislike the quality of extreme polish? How much do you say, this is sincere, and because it is sincere, it is what I want? And how much have you learned to feel that anything which is highly polished, or which is extremely adept and professional, is perhaps not sincere? Now, the contemporary artist feels exactly the same way, and feels that too great a polish, too great a skillfulness shown, will indicate what? It will indicate that this quality of intense belief and faith has been adulterated by professionalism, and therefore he will make his work blunt. Now, one of the things that is not difficult for us to enjoy, and that comes in this directly from the work of children, is this quality of color, which you can perhaps apprehend, I think, even in the dark and light, because there is a strong movement of brilliant pattern and brilliant color across this. Pattern that is seen for its own sake, and this is something which children very often do. The pattern may take over the person entirely, and you can't even see anything except the pattern of the person. And another thing which children do very often is put a dark, heavy line around the work. Now, here you can see very nicely this business of unevenness or clumsiness, or what looks like non-professionalism, that comes almost directly from the work of children. And I can show you another example of that by Picasso. I've used this painting a number of times in talking about art, And always people say, but why is this drawn this way if they don't know very much about art? When they look at this, they are looking at it as if Picasso wanted to make an exact image of these objects which you see here. He did not. One of the things which he wanted to do, and that's perhaps only one of them, was to have the same quality of intensity, even of bluntness, of unaffectedness, that is so much the charm of the work of children. Because this is what they are doing it for. That is, they are not doing a picture to be put in a gallery, they're not doing a painting to be sold, and that I think is very important. But a thing which they must do because they love it. And the contemporary artist, even though he is not going to be as innocent as the child, may want to assume or to convey some of that innocence. Matisse, at the very beginning of the century, made a statement which I suppose every artist since then has thought of. Oh, to have the innocent eye of the child. I think what he really meant was to have the innocent heart of the child. To have the heart which will insist on conveying the thing that lies deepest in it. Insist even against its own physical inadequacy, against the fact that its hand is untrained, against all of the things which stand between it and the expression of its desire. I'll see you next time.